You know those families that are so dramatic, they could easily have their own TV show? Yeah, that's mine. Let's start with my grandfather. He's been through more relationships than I can count, and every time it ends in the same kind of chaos. The wild part? The woman he finally settled with is now doing the exact same thing to him. My grandmother, on the other hand, used to have very strong opinions about certain people. So naturally, my uncle decided to marry not one, but two women from the exact background she didn't approve of. And get this, my grandma doesn't talk to my uncle anymore, but she's best friends with both his ex and his current wife. You can't make this up. My cousin? She's had a few adventurous driving moments, to put it nicely. Now she's a mom, though the family's still, let's say, unclear about the full story there. Then there's my other grandmother. She had big emotional ups and downs and never really got along with my mom. Her sister's son went through some very dark times, and my dad? He's convinced every job he's had was run by people secretly plotting against him. After 10 years of job hopping, he's still blaming my mom, a teacher by the way, for trying to make him look bad. So no single event defines the madness. But if drama was an Olympic sport, my family would have brought home gold by now. My dad was always intense, the kind of person who could turn a quiet room into a storm in seconds. He wasn't really a drinker, but he definitely had his own habits. Let's just say he was a bit too comfortable leaving things around the house that shouldn't have been there. Things got strange when he started receiving disability payments and suddenly had way too much free time. He spent hours online, and that's when he met someone, a woman from another country. At first it seemed harmless, just online chatting, but then they started exchanging photos, gifts, and small packages through the mail. It got serious enough that she decided to visit a nearby country. And of course, my dad couldn't resist taking a road trip to meet her in person. A few months later, he flew overseas to see her again. That's when everything fell apart. My mom found out what was happening and called him while he was away. She told him she was done. She wanted a divorce. After that, everything changed. When he came back, he wasn't the same. He started showing up unexpectedly, saying strange things about my mom's side of the family, and even taking random stuff from the house when we weren't home. It was like watching someone slowly lose their grip on reality. He moved into another place nearby, started fixing it up, got really fit, and for a while it looked like maybe he was turning things around. But then right before Thanksgiving, something happened. He laid down for a nap at my grandmother's house and he never woke up. As chaotic as our lives were, that moment changed everything. It was like the storm had finally gone silent, but the damage it left behind still lingers in every memory we have of him.
When I was 13, my life changed completely. My mom was a single mother. She'd had a rough life. She struggled with a lot of things. Unstable relationships, bad choices, and constant chaos. My older sister, who was 16 at the time, had already moved in with friends to escape the mess. One day, my mom told me we were moving. No warning, no explanation. Just, pack your things, we're leaving. We ended up renting a small room in a house out in the desert. Most of our stuff was in storage. The man who owned the house, I think his name was Mike, was basically a stranger. But that didn't seem to bother my mom.
We'd only been there for a week or so when things took a turn. One afternoon, my mom was lying on the couch, drifting in and out of consciousness. I tried to wake her up, but she wasn't responding. I panicked. I ran to the living room to call an ambulance, but Mike was on the phone. I told him it was an emergency, that my mom was really sick and needed help. He just ignored me. Then he got irritated and told me I couldn't use the phone. So I did the only thing I could think of. I ran, barefoot, down a dusty road, until I reached the nearest grocery store several blocks away. I used the payphone there to call one of my mom's friends, because I couldn't even remember our new address. She told me she'd call an ambulance and to wait there by the time she picked me up. The ambulance had already come and taken my mom to the hospital. I stayed with that friend for a while, waiting for my mom to recover and come get me. But she didn't. She left the hospital against medical advice and completely disappeared. To this day, I still don't know what really happened to her. Sometimes she says it was a bad reaction to medication. Other times she claims it was a stroke. Honestly, I'll never know. After 2 weeks, my mom's friend told me she couldn't take care of me anymore. I had nowhere to go. My sister tried to help, but she was just a kid herself. Finally, my aunt and uncle, who I hadn't seen in over a year, agreed to take me in. I moved in with them with nothing but the clothes on my back and a small duffel bag. They were kind, stable, and for the first time, I felt safe. After a few days, they sat me down and said, "Would you like to stay here for good? We can adopt you." I didn't even know what to say, but I said yes. About a month later, my mom showed up out of nowhere. I could hear her yelling at my uncle from the next room. Then she stormed in and told me to pack my things, that we were leaving. I refused. I told her I wanted to stay until she had a place to live and a job. That's when everything exploded. She started crying, saying things like, "You're abandoning me. I've never been good enough for you." Then she looked at me and said the words that still echo in my head, "If you don't come with me now, you'll never see me again." I thought she was bluffing, so I stayed. She left, and I didn't hear from her again for 2 years. When I was 15, a letter arrived in the mail. It was 4 or 5 pages long. She wrote about how she forgave me for abandoning her, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I read a few lines, then tore it up and threw it away. I don't regret that decision, not anymore. My dad has always been dramatic. He needed attention, control, and to be at the center of every conversation. When I was younger, I started noticing strange things about our home phone. My mom would try to call her mom, but the line would suddenly not work sometimes. People couldn't reach us at all, yet somehow we could still call out. It didn't make sense. One day, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to follow the phone cables around the house. I was just a kid, but even then, I was determined to figure out what was going on. The line led me to the basement, and that's where I found it. A small metal box connected to 2 separate phone lines. My dad had built some kind of switch system so he could control when calls came through. Basically, he could cut off my mom's conversations with her own mother whenever he wanted. It was his way of controlling her, making sure she only talked when he allowed it. Eventually, my mom caught on. After a big confrontation, he stopped blocking the line. But he kept a second one hidden, this time leading to a phone in the garage. I never figured out everything he used it for, but the whole thing left me with this uneasy feeling. Years later, things only got stranger. My cousin passed away, and my father insisted on taking charge of the funeral. You'd think he'd be respectful or somber, but no. He spent most of the time talking about himself, telling stories that had nothing to do with my cousin. It wasn't until my husband quietly pointed it out that I realized how unusual it all was. To me, it just felt normal because that's what life with my dad was like. Everything, no matter how serious, somehow became about him. I have one relative who struggles with schizophrenia, several who deal with paranoia, an aunt who had a serious breakdown and started seeing things that weren't there, 2 uncles who have committed serious crimes, and a few family members who show strong antisocial traits. My great-great-grandmother was responsible for a terrible tragedy involving her own family, and my grandfather had a very troubled past as well. Because of all this, I've long stopped pretending that there isn't something genetic going on. Interestingly, I've noticed that everyone in my family is extremely creative, just not in the traditional artistic sense. Many of my cousins use their cleverness in questionable ways. As for me, I've realized I'm naturally very suspicious and cautious of people. I used to think it came from being raised in that kind of environment, but now I believe it's something that runs in our bloodline. When I went to college, family life went downhill significantly. When I was 17, my dad had a heart attack after that. He tried to eat better and started having a glass of wine each day with dinner. Around the same time, my sister got into weed with her boyfriend and started hanging out with some bad influences. Things got worse when I went to college. My sister started experimenting with heavier substances and alcohol. My dad was dealing with severe back and tooth pain and began drinking more and misusing his prescription medications to cope. My mom was left to handle all of this, and it was really hard on her. I remember one summer after my first year of college, I was working full-time and took my parents to a Tom Petty concert as a late Father's Day gift. At the show, my dad asked if I wanted anything. I asked for water. He came back with whiskey. I didn't want it, but he insisted. He kept drinking and getting belligerent, and when we got home, it continued all night. The next morning, he was offering me alcohol again. My sister came home later and found him passed out at the bottom of the stairs. He got up and continued drinking. I ended up calling the police because he can be verbally aggressive and throw things, of course. He acted innocent and nothing happened. I left after they left to avoid more abuse. Since that night, things have gotten worse. When he drinks, he can be really aggressive. One night, he went after my mom with a rolling pin. I had to step in and restrain him. He's ended up in the hospital many times but refuses to admit he has a problem. My sister's situation also deteriorated. She stole money and valuables from the family, pawned household items, took credit cards, and hid drug paraphernalia around the house. She's been arrested several times, gone to rehab multiple times, and has serious health issues now, all before turning 22. The stress of all this has also affected my mom, who started gambling. Eventually, I moved 500 miles away to finish school and avoid being in the middle of the chaos. Looking back, it's depressing how different life is now compared to how it was when I graduated from high school. My dad was really unpredictable. He believed that if we were driving somewhere and we hit a red light, it was some kind of sign that we shouldn't go out that day, so we'd have to turn around and go home. He also tried to impose strict fasting periods on my mom because he believed he heard from God. She had to drink water from the shower sometimes. This happened before I was born. He would also go door to door collecting for animal charities, but instead of talking to people, he'd just hold out a can silently. Probably the most intense thing he did to me personally was when he physically shook me for spilling cereal on the couch. I was only 4 at the time. As I got older, his drinking worsened and his behavior became more aggressive, mentally and physically. My mom had to deal with most of it, but occasionally he would direct it toward me or my sister. My family has had its share of other issues too. My aunt is transgender, and there have been drug-related problems, but most of the drama revolved around my dad. I really wish I knew why he was like that. I'm 16 now and I don't exactly forgive him, but I also don't blame him. I don't think it was completely his fault. I just don't understand why he acted that way. I know he loves me and sometimes nothing seemed to provoke him. It's really hard to say that I love him and I feel a lot of guilt about that.